From the careful training he received from his father to starting the TGL with Rory McIlroy, here's everything you need to know about what happened to Tiger Woods. Eldrick Taunt Woods, or Tiger as most people know him, was the only child of Earl and Tida Woods. He got his start in golf pretty early on, with his military father carefully training him to become the best of the best. His dad had fought in the Vietnam War, so he knew a thing or two about discipline, and he instilled that work ethic in his son. Earl Woods learned how to play golf at the ripe old age of 42 while he was stationed at Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, and he fell in love with the sport from day one. Even though he never became a pro, he was a respectable amateur golfer, and he gained more than enough experience to teach his son a thing or two. Thanks to his father's guidance, Tiger got started in the world of golf when he was just 2 years old, and he quickly became a child prodigy. The funny thing is that he didn't even want to become a pro golfer at first. His dad's main sport was baseball, and Tiger wanted to follow in his footsteps. However, a sudden injury to his rotator cuff convinced him that golf was the better choice. So in a way, his legendary career kind of started through pure chance. He seemed destined for greatness from the get-go, but there was a small issue that might have kept fame and fortune out of his reach. Not a lot of people know this, but Tiger used to stutter as a child. You might be wondering what this has to do with a career in golf, but you've got to understand, Tiger's not just an athlete. He's a public figure with a highly visible brand, and building such a brand can be downright impossible if you can't speak with clarity and precision. This was such a big deal for Tiger that he even contemplated ending his own life, but luckily, he was able to overcome the speech impediment at a young age. He had to take a special class for 2 years to get rid of it, but by the time he was 18, Tiger's path forward was completely free of all obstacles. He was voted most likely to succeed in his high school graduating class, and by the time he was applying for college, some of the most prestigious institutions in the country were vying to recruit him. He ended up choosing Stanford, but the guy was too talented to sit around listening to lectures all day. After all, he made his PGA Tour debut at the 1995 Masters just a year after he started college. This tournament saw Tiger participate as the only amateur on the circuit, and even though he finished in 41st place, he improved his performance massively in subsequent years. He won the 1997 Masters by 12 strokes, not to mention becoming the first golfer to win the U.S. amateur title 3 times in a row. So it was pretty obvious that he was ready to dominate the big leagues. All of this success allowed Tiger to turn pro at just 20 years of age. This brought the young athlete a ton of wealth, including a Nike deal that netted him a cool $40 million. At a time when most people are chugging beer kegs and making fools of themselves, Tiger got the most valuable endorsement in the history of golf, not to mention making the cover of Sports Illustrated. Now, this doesn't mean that he had it easy. Tiger faced his fair share of struggles, including severe nearsightedness that required surgical intervention in 1999. Despite all of that, he persevered and became the greatest golfer of all time. Just a few months before we entered the new millennium, he became the top-ranked golfer in the world. The next decade or so saw him at the peak of his craft, with his sublime long drives becoming the talk of the golfing community, and his unflappable demeanor during high-pressure situations continues to be a sight to behold. Look, if there's one thing you can say about Tiger, it's that he's versatile. He's beaten opponents in pretty much every way imaginable, with a dominant style of play that combines power and finesse into an unmatched package. Tiger is such a force to be reckoned with that his opponents seem to get flustered in his presence, and a study from Northwestern University proved that. For real. This study showed that any player that was sharing the field with this living legend performed worse than average, which just goes to show how intimidating he can be. His record speaks for itself, with a collective 683 weeks at the number 1 spot, blowing any rivals clear out of the water, and 15 major championship wins to date. All that success led to Tiger becoming enormously wealthy, to the point where he became the first billionaire golfer ever back in 2022. Of course, if you've been following his career for a while, you'd know that it hasn't always been sunshine and rainbows. Even though he seemed to be living it up, there were certain problems in his personal life that threatened to bring everything crashing down. The first cracks in his image appeared in November of 2009 when an article published in the National Enquirer detailed an extramarital affair he'd been involved in. Now, Tiger Woods had a Swedish swimsuit model for a wife, so you can imagine how shocked everyone was when they found out he'd been unfaithful. What was even more troubling was the sheer scale of his infidelity. This article revealed that Woods had slept with over 120 women, and one of them was a 21-year-old that he'd known since she was 14. A couple days after this expose came out, the golf pro ended up crashing his car and getting seriously injured. His face suffered lacerations in the accident, and on top of that, his career started to crumble all around him. Fast forward a year, and he'd sunk from the #1 spot to 68th place, and his dramatic fall from grace was only getting started. I should probably mention that Tiger had spent 281 straight weeks at the top ranking before all of this went down. Some would say that the star was now thoroughly disgraced, and while that might be a bit too strong of a word, his plummeting rankings over the next few years certainly didn't do him any favors. By the time 2017 rolled around, Tiger was just barely cracking the top 1,000 golfers in the world, which would have been unthinkable during his heyday. While he reached his lowest ranking in his professional career, his life started to spiral out of control. It's now time to talk about the elephant in the room, the moment that Tiger Woods hit rock bottom. In May of 2017, the world's greatest golfer got arrested for driving under the influence, and a toxicology report showed 5 different substances in his bloodstream. He'd been driving around while on 2 different types of pain meds, an anti-anxiety pill, sleeping pills, and some THC to round things off. It's honestly a miracle that he didn't end anyone's life on the road, but that's an awfully low bar to clear. Tiger's mugshot ended up getting shared all across social media, with practically everyone criticizing him for his incredibly irresponsible behavior. Now, the golfer claimed that he needed all those medications for chronic back pain and insomnia, but that doesn't excuse him for operating a vehicle while under the influence. The stress of the past few years had clearly gotten to him, and his ragged appearance in the mugshot just cemented the startling downfall he'd experienced. He was still well respected for all of his past accomplishments, but the stain left by his extramarital affairs and alleged substance abuse wasn't going to go away anytime soon. To his credit, Tiger's made a bit of a comeback after this, starting with a stunning jump to 68th place. That's the largest gain he's ever made in his rankings during his career, and it showed the world that he still had some of that secret sauce. He even managed to win another Masters tournament in 2019, which was his first victory in a major tournament in 11 years. Even so, his peak is now far behind him, and he hasn't been able to capture the magic of his golden years ever since. As of the making of this video, Tiger is busy fighting against the ever-growing power of the Saudi Arabian Live tournament, but he hasn't really shown any of his former heroics on the golf course. These days, he's mostly busy starting the TGL with Rory McIlroy and a few other pros. In case you don't know, the TGL is a tournament involving 6 teams, including Tiger's own Jupiter Links Golf Club, which he co-owns with noted sports investor David Blitzer. Despite a history of injuries, Tiger will be taking the course to continue his playing career as a member of his team, so we might get the chance to watch him in action again. As unlikely as it seems, golf fans around the world will be hoping to catch a glimpse of this once-in-a-lifetime performer, so here's to hoping he finds his old form once again. So, from his current attempts to start the TGL to the training he received from his father, this was everything you needed to know about what happened to Tiger Woods.